quick backdrop. As you guys know, this new thing we're doing on Blake and Vish Sports, we are now going through position by position in the NFL and mentioning which player that we think is the most underrated in the position. So we did quarterbacks the first time. Blake said Tannehill. I said Mayfield. We did running backs with Grant. I said Kareem Hunt. Blake said Grant said Ronald Jones. Blake said Miles Sanders from the Eagles. So now here we are. We're at receivers. Grant's been hyping this one up. So without further ado, I give you the floor, Grant. Go ahead. Tell me who the most underrated receiver in the NFL is.
All right. I think there's a right answer here. And I think I'm about to give it. The most underrated receiver in the NFL is named Terry McLaurin. Okay. And he's very good. I think people know who he is. He's had 1,000-yard seasons. He's not exactly hiding in Washington. But, I mean, I really feel like he's as good as any wide receiver in the NFL. Anyone you name, he's as good as. Like, the guy who led the entire league in receiving this year, Stephon Diggs, great receiver. Terry McLaurin's as good as Stephon Diggs, if not better. Probably a little bit faster, younger, maybe a little bit more explosive. The only thing really holding him back right now is that he's been playing with, Alex Smith. Nothing against Alex Smith, but Dwayne Haskins, Case Keenum, like modest quarterbacks.
Kyle Allen.
Yeah, Kyle Allen. And now he's got Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I don't think he's going to lead the league in receiving with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he might. He's that freaking good. So I don't really have that much to say about Terry McLaurin. He can do everything well. I want to just say I have a bonus guy, a bonus sleeper. Like McLaurin is the number one receiver. He could be the best receiver in the league. What do you want? You want to say something about McLaurin? Go ahead before I go to mine.
Yeah, why don't we save the bonus sleeper?
Sure.
We'll all mention some bonus guys after. We'll come back,
good.
Grant.
Sounds good.
Blake, I want to hear your thoughts on McLaurin because I feel like, Grant didn't toot his horn enough because he did say Terry McLaurin was going to be really good before the draft.
That's my biggest hit ever. That's my guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Grant pointed it out. Just look at the quarterbacks that he's played with. I don't think there's any of those guys that are like even average at pushing the ball intermediate to down the field. And that's what Scary Terry is actually best at is going deep, but he hasn't had a quarterback that can do that. Now, say what you want about Fitzmagic, Fitztragic, Fitzpatrick, whatever you call him. He can sling it. He will sling it. He has a cannon. Threw the ball 30, 40 yards while his his head was the other way. He has an arm, and I think, there will be moments of greatness in that offense. They have a lot of weapons, and I liked him a lot. But, yeah, I'm excited to see him with a quarterback that can show glimpses of being average. Like, he has really never had anyone that's remotely average.
No.
And that's
he still produces.
Amazing. It's like kind of like Larry Fitzgerald when he played up until Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer, where it was just John Skeleton, I think was one of the
Richard Bartell.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see him with a better quarterback. Yeah, he's a beast down the field, so we'll see.
Yeah. All right, who you got?
Didn't Max Young start a game for them? Max Hall, Max Young, Max wore number 6. He started a game against the 49ers in the Jim Harbaugh era for sure.
John Skelton beat the 49ers when they were 13-3.
I do remember that.
The Niners signed John Skelton, and they realized
wasn't that the game Deshaun Golson punched early Doucette?
Yes.
But real quick, I also wanted to touch on Terry McLaurin just to drive this point home. Just wanted to go through real quick. What I wanted to mention is, so Grant, you mentioned how he's underrated, and it's not because everybody agrees. I think Terry McLaurin's good. I think the question is how good. And I think when it comes to the how good and people start naming the best receivers in the NFL, that's where people just totally omit and forget about his name. Just look at his draft class. When you talk about the 19 draft class, people are always talking about Metcalf and Brown, deservedly so. McLaurin should be right there with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. McLaurin is every bit as good as them. And you talk about the quarterbacks he's produced with, absolutely. And one of the things I think that's underrated about him is that he's actually really good after the catch. It's one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough with him because in college, if you remember, Paris Campbell was the yak guy. Then you look at this draft class, A.J. Brown's incredible after the catch. Metcalf's incredible after the catch. Debo is. But McLaurin, I mean, the fact that he will produce the way he produced with Alex Smith at quarterback, especially Alex Smith with his legs still being what it was and his inability to throw the ball 10 yards down the field, tells you how great he is after the catch. Just wanted to mention that out.
Hey,
shout out to Scary Terry.
Yeah, shout out Scary Terry. If you want to give yourself a laugh, go back and read the official NFL.com scouting report of him. They're like, seems like a decent backup who's really going to make his mark on special teams. Yeah,
wasn't he a second rounder? Like
Third.
that's a little
Third. They didn't use him at Ohio State. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a Dwayne Haskins thing, but I mean, even in the pros, Dwayne Haskins would throw to Scary Terry, but in the college, it was all about the drag route to Paris Campbell.
They were running a version. They were running a version of the any offense with Phillip Rivers. Any offense with Phillip Rivers, the two throws you see constantly is you'll see him throw crossing routes because they'll run a ton of mesh, and you'll see him throw corners. And Phillip Rivers' corner route and his crossing route are like all time. It's like the way he throws those. Dwayne Haskins in Ohio State was crossing route to Paris Campbell, screen to Paris Campbell, crossing route to Paris Campbell. That was their offense.
And so when I saw, look, this is the reason I thought Terry McLaurin would be good, and then we can move on. But first of all, he dominated the one-on-one stuff in Senior Bowl. I take the one-on-one drills very seriously. If you can win on that, you're pretty good. Now, Pettis can win on that. The other thing is he dominated the combine. I mean, he was good in every athletic metric. And then you look, okay, he went to Ohio State, so he's probably one of the best athletes in the country. Didn't get the ball that much. Well, that's a lot of wide receivers at Ohio. That was Michael Thomas. So I felt like he was pretty kind of can't miss. But everyone was like, well, he didn't produce. All right.
All right, real quick before we go to Blake, I want to call out J-Man Gold, my man, with a little bit of disrespect.
Oh, right now?
We aren't interviewing an actual 49ers reporter in Grant Cohn.
Dang. Oh, they're interviewing Tabor Pepper. Okay, well, we don't want to step on
the long snapper?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
We don't want to step on their toe too much.
Yeah,
so you guys go ahead.
J-Man Gold.
Yeah,
we have Grant Cohn on. Come on. Tabor Pepper, Grant Cohn. Come on. No, I'm kidding.
We'll be done soon.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Definitely go check that out. Both Jack and Jesse do a phenomenal job. So without further ado, I'll just give Blake the floor. We can talk about Blake's underrated receiver. Who is it? Tell me.
Vish, we have same team, so we can just talk about him. But both on the Panthers. Mine is the more of a deep threat guy. Came from the Jets. His coming out party, I guess you could say. But I liked him on the Jets a lot, honestly. And that's Robbie Anderson. So was on the Jets, played with Darnold. Darnold's coming back. And I think everyone knows Teddy Bridgewater's not the type of guy to go down the field very much. He threw a drag route on 4th and 10. Famously gets made fun of that. But when he did push the ball down the field, Robbie Anderson's pretty good at contested catches, incredibly fast. Not the best after the catch. Like, if you get your arms on him, he's probably going down. But crossing routes, anything deep, pretty good at slant and goes. I like him a lot, and he could play outside or slot. And I think he was kind of the forgotten guy that people don't really talk about with the Panthers. I guess they're all kind of forgotten. But I like him a lot, and I think, he'll have another 1,000-yard season, especially with a quarterback that has a way bigger arm and is more willing to go down the field in Sam Darnold. So Anderson, baby.
My bad, excuse me. But so, Grant, I'll also just mention mine, and then I'd love to hear your take on him. As Blake kind of set it up, they're on the same team. Jamal knew it was coming. It's right on brand. I've been kind of tweeting about this hard a lot, and it's without a doubt
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore is without a doubt, to me, the most underrated receiver in the NFL. We're talking about a guy.
I'm familiar with DJ Moore. Can you give me his skill set real quick?
I
haven't seen a lot
of
him.
If Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk had a baby.
Ooh, okay, that's dirty.
He's like he's got Deebo's after the catch physicality, explosion, and after the catch ability, which Ayuk has, but I would say DJ Moore's after the catch ability is closer to Deebo. But he's got an Ayuk type athleticism to him and an ability to catch the football down the field a little bit like Ayuk as well and everything. So without a doubt, I would say, I think that's probably the best way to look at him. But dude, we're talking about a guy who had 1,000 yards with Kyle Allen as his quarterback and Teddy Bridgewater as his quarterback.
Yes.
This is a very, very good receiver in a division with some good corners that cover him, Marshawn Lattimore and Carlton Davis. And this guy has his way. I think the thing is that he's kind of a quieter, kind of unassuming guy. He didn't have a lot of hype before the draft. Yeah. Right. So people just don't talk about him. I think that he's phenomenal. I think Robbie Anderson is very good as well. I think both those guys, honestly, you could put them both as underrated. Frankly, you could put DJ Moore's teammate, Calvin Ridley, or not teammate, excuse me, draft class peer, Calvin Ridley, also in the 2018 draft class, as another guy who's underrated. But yeah, those two Carolina guys, they're filthy good. They're filthy good. Yeah, Sam Darnold's really in an elite situation to succeed. Yes. Taylor Moton's an elite right tackle. They have a pretty good setup around him.
All right, real quick, let me do my sleeper, and then you guys can do your sleeper, and then I got to go eat dinner. My sleeper, this is like the deep. This guy's a number 2 receiver, all right? But I think he's a freaking baller. John Brown. John Brown has been on 3 teams. He was with Arizona. He was with Buffalo. And now I didn't even know what team. The Raiders got him. I like that signing for the Raiders. First of all, he's better than Henry Ruggs. The way I look at John Brown was when Arizona went to the NFC Championship game, he was not the number 1 receiver Larry Fitzgerald was, but he was the explosive element in that offense. He was the X factor. He's what made them dangerous. He was just as important, if not more important than Larry Fitzgerald. Then last year, I mean, yeah, Stephon Diggs is great, but having both of them and having Cole Beasley's hella good too. But having John Brown was always really nice. And now I see him on the Raiders as being basically him and Darren Waller are going to be quite a combination. I think he's an upgrade over Nelson Aguilar, who went to the Patriots. John Brown.
You think John Brown still got it left in his legs? He's been injured quite a bit.
He did have an ankle injury last year. He was on the COVID list. Let's see. He's 30. Let's see.
All right, fair.
If not, he had a good career.
He did. And I like that you mentioned the Arizona, because I mentioned Carson Palmer earlier. Carson Palmer was bombs away in Arizona to Michael Floyd and John Brown.
Yes. John Brown was way better than Michael Floyd. Anyway, who are your sleepers?
Mike, go ahead.
All right, I got 2. One of them's a homer pick. Allen Lazard, I mean, he does it all. If he was not injured as much this year, I think he would honestly be people would recognize him as the number 2, really good blocker. He third and over like 12. He tossed Jalen Ramsey off and beat him in one-on-one coverage in the divisional game. Not gonna say too much on that, but
no big deal.
Would not happen to Jair Island. All right, but in all seriousness, my underrated guy is Tyler Boyd. Bengals slot receiver, 1,000 yards. Pittsburgh. Raven. I want to say it was the Ravens. It was like 4th and 8, and they bounced. They got the Bills into the playoffs in 2017, and John Brown scored like a 30-something yard touchdown to win. But no, he's really good. If he did not play in Cincinnati, I think he'd get a lot of talk. Amazing slot receiver. He's going to get 1,000 yards this year. I know they have Chase. I know they have Higgins. I feel like he'll still get 800, 900, 1,000 yards because he's just that consistent.
He just destroyed
coverage.
He's good.
Him and Burrow had chemistry for days.
He's good.
Yeah,
he's just
he
good.
is definitely very good. He is very good. So
I liked him coming out of Pitt. I remember him.
I funnily enough was going to actually mention Tyler Boyd. So that kind of throws me for a little bit of a loop. Let's see if I can recover here. And so I think there's a lot of guys, honestly, that are underappreciated, but I'm actually going to go to a guy that was a former 49er. I'm going to say Kendrick Bourne. And I'm not going to say Kendrick Bourne because he's not underrated in the traditional sense where you're talking about, a big-time receiver like I talked about with DJ Moore that no one talks about, or Terry McLaurin, he's just, I think, a really, really good, solid player who's very durable, who's good in the red zone, who gets open in tight spaces, can grab contested catches, is a willing and competitive blocker. He just checks every single box of what you need for a consistently good receiver on your football team. Okay. And I think that as Niners, I just think he wasn't appreciated, honestly, for his time with the Niners. He had one game. He had one training camp where he dropped the ball way too much, according to everybody. And then he had one game against Seattle where he had 3 drops. And it's Kendrick Bourne drops everything. He has one drop, he has one drop for the rest of the season. It was against the Vikings on a 3rd and 6 when Garoppolo, I think, put the ball maybe a couple inches too far in front of him. Bourne should have definitely caught it, and he let it go through his hands. Get Kendrick Bourne out of here. He drops everything. He's the worst. But honestly, I think the Niners
would also have false starts and stuff. They'd be like kind of boneheaded stuff where it seems like, is he really serious about the game? But
but it was only him, right? It was only him. Like Kittle would have false starts and nobody would say anything. Kittle would look at the camera with his eyes wide apart,
Yeah.
But no, I'm kidding. But Kendrick Bourne, I think they're going to really miss him this year. And the one thing about Bourne, right, is that he was the one guy that played 16 games year in and year out for this team. He was the one guy that showed up every week. He was excellent on third down.
True.
He was very reliable for this team. He was very reliable for Jimmy Garoppolo. I do think they're going to miss Kendrick Bourne. I think on paper he's a good fit for New England. Let's see if he ends up being a good fit for New England, because the moment he drops a pass there, those Boston beat writers are going to be like, he dances too much. Look at him and Cam Newton dancing. There's no dancing allowed in football. They're going to be talking about the dancing. But honestly, I think he's a very underappreciated good player.